Welcome to Speak of the Devils, the premier podcast for Sun Devil football. I'm Brad Denny with 3TV.
Season's greetings, y'all. Joe Healy with DevilsDigest.com.
All right, Joe. So season's greetings means, of course, the holidays are upon us, but also that is National Signing Day, the first day of the early signing period. Now, of course, the importance of this day has evolved over the last couple of years here in the portal area, but still a major day. One that has reshaped the Sun Devil roster in great respects. Obviously, still very much a work in progress in the months ahead, but a lot of new Sun Devils are official today.
Yeah, and that's a big deal. But, like a moment of silence for the olden times of National Signing Day when it was just that probably first Wednesday in February. Didn't know everything that was going into it. Didn't have the transfer portal. Like, that's where you built your team year over year over year. And that was always a cool thing. And I did some projects for ASU, so I kind of got a behind the curtain view for a handful of years a while back. So, yeah, I've got some cool memories when it comes to signing day. But, hey, everything evolves, right? So it's still an integral piece of things. It's unique how it's approached with the transfer portal. But like you said, some big-time additions for ASU. And we'll talk about them and what they might be able to bring to the field in Tempe for the Devils.
Yeah, it's interesting because, there used to be some dramatic elements. You never knew what was going to happen, who might flip at the last minute. These days, it's all almost kind of pretty chalk of just everybody that we thought that would sign today pretty much did. And just it's pretty lacking the dramatic tension of years of past.
And because you don't really have, the Omar Bolden theatrics that we all love and things like that. And maybe, I wonder, might overthink it, and maybe it's a topic for another time. Maybe the transfer portal, the existence of it kind of takes a little bit of that out of the equation, because maybe high school players are like, hey, this is not that big of a decision anymore, because if I go someplace and it's not really the right fit, I can just get out of there and then I can leave the next place too. I wonder really if that makes the decision process and the whole thing a little different, but again, topic for a different time.
Yeah, so let's focus on what ASU was able to accomplish today. And to do so, we have a tremendous guest list that will be joining us to cap the episode. We're going to be joined by, for his 96th appearance, Hod Rabino, publisher of DevilsDigest.com, giving his expertise and insight into what ASU was able to do and also what remains to be done. And then we'll be talking to four brand new Sun Devils. Offensive lineman Champs Westbrooks, a very, very well-regarded prep offensive lineman out of L.A., defensive back Tony-Louis Nkuba, a four-star prospect coming out of Texas, and then a couple of transfer portal additions. Raleek Brown coming over from USC, got a lot of fans excited, as well as safety Kamari Wilson, former Florida Gator and a top 60 national recruit in his own right. So let's dive in right now. Just starting off on the offensive side of the ball, Joe. One thing that the ASC was able to do is back-to-back weekends, had a lot of guys in for official visits, before the official dead period, and really was able to close the deal. If this is Glengarry on the roster, coffee for everybody on that staff.
A lot of coffee. Yeah, it was like a slot machine hit the jackpot there on Saturday, I think it was, when it was just tweet after tweet after tweet. Every couple of minutes, it was just this surge of recruiting commitments and transfer commitments. And these were not small-time guys. And, we'll obviously break it down in detail. Really like what they went with. There are some players that have experience, some that are a little bit younger that have high recruiting pedigree or measurables that are really intriguing. They scoured different parts of the country. It's a little different than last year where you saw that huge surge of former Arizona high school products. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but it's just a little bit different approach. One thing that I really like, and a lot of others do too, is that the majority of these transfers, I think if not all of them, I don't know that any of them are grad transfers in the sense of 1 year guys.
Everybody has multiple years.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And starting off with the name that really perhaps got the most juice and the most buzz, because he's not too far removed from being a 5-star prospect out of high school per Rivals. Raleek Brown, 5'8", 185-pounder. Speed, and more speed. And unfortunately he got a little bit lost in the shuffle over at USC. Played some at running back in his freshman year, returned some kicks, but in the second season they tried to move him to wide receiver and a slot. Something that didn't really jive with him too well. So he is now He put his name in the portal and is now a Sun Devil. Very exciting addition. Explosive, as you mentioned, very fast guy. Special teams value as well. Joining a backfield that already has obviously returning guys like Cam Scadaboo, DeCarlos Brooks. Kyson Brown had showed some flashes at true freshman year, where we'll talk about a little bit later on, a 4-star prep edition. 3 years left, though, for Raleek Brown, and who you'll hear from in a moment. But man, what an exciting weapon for Marcus Arroyo and Kenny Dillingham to have.
Yeah, that's a big get because he's someone that was sought after by a lot of folks, not just from high school, of course, as a 5-star, but even in the transfer market as well. So he's someone that a new change of scenery could really be a big deal. And as kind of a side note, man, there's something's weird maybe in USC. You've seen in the last week or two, they have had quite a few transfers. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know everything up and down about their roster and everything like that, but guys that I recognize the names. You know, they've got some former 5-star recruits that are all leaving. Some are young. So I think I saw 3 or 4, including Brown, they're getting their way out of California. So interesting times, and ASU is the benefit of that circumstance, at least with Brown.
Perhaps those guys are checking the current weather of, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Columbus, Ohio, and stuff that this Big Ten move might not be to their taste. But yeah, Raleek Brown is going to be a very exciting figure to watch for the Sun Devils offense. Now, of course, you can have all the playmakers in the world, but if you're not winning in the trenches, as we saw last year, if you have your struggles, you're not going to do pretty well. So obviously ASU fans from last week with a number of commitments out of the portal, we're wondering, where's the beef, Joe? There's a lot of beef that's coming in. Starting off with Joey Sua, a guy who was born actually in Phoenix and has formative years here before ultimately landing at the University of Arkansas. 6'4", 346-pounder. Did not play last year as a true freshman, so he's coming over. 4 years left.
That is some beef. You get him, some Burrito Express, some Spaghetti Shack. He'll be well over that 350-pound mark. But, man, that's a big dude coming back this way from SEC country.
Yeah, so a very intriguing addition there, especially with some of the departures on the interior there. And then another, perhaps on the opposite end of the spectrum, a very experienced FBS player as well, Shanko Issei Matautia. 20 starts for the University of New Mexico, and of course, he played for former ASU DC Danny Gonzalez during his tenure as head coach there, mainly at right guard for the Lobos. Also, perhaps nice little tie in there. He played at Servite High School in Southern California, where the true powerhouse is there. A former All Mountain West All Academic member as well. 6'2", also coincidentally 346 pounds. Also, with 2 years left.
Man, just a big. So you're talking nearly 700 pounds between just those two dudes alone. You bring starting experience from the Division I level, from the FBS level. That's the good thing, no matter what it is. Whether you would imagine he's a candidate to start, no matter what, whether it's starter, whether it's depth. We saw this year. We've seen on a few occasions, but I can't remember a time more notably than this year. You got to go. Like 2 deep at least across the board at offensive line with guys that you can trust out there, and that's and he fits that profile.
Yeah, so obviously you're getting Ben Coleman back, who unfortunately wasn't able to play for the Sun Devils after coming over from Cal a season ago. So hopefully he's able to be healthy. He's practicing with the team near the end of the season. Sean Naa had a very promising start, thrown into duty probably a year before anybody on the staff wanted them to. He had a couple of these guys, so you return Leif Fatanu at center. So all of a sudden, perhaps that interior of the offensive line, maybe he's looking, fairly decent if some of these guys can come in and hit the ground running.
Yeah, I would say if you're looking on the interior side, you feel relatively, comfortable and confident. You want to make some noise on the offensive tackles because it's going to be a big thing because there were deficiencies there and you lose some players as well. So that's going to be a main target, which we'll get into later on in the show.
All right, so as we close out this look as the offensive portal additions, good time to catch up with and get to know one of the explosive newcomers, now the guy we just talked about, Raleek Brown. All right, Raleek, obviously, a guy jumping in the portal with your talent, a lot of schools coming after you. What were the biggest things that were most important to you in terms of your next destination that you really wanted to make sure that your next program had?
Just a good relationship with the coaching staff, and then just a good way for them to help me on my academics, like the tutoring and all that type of stuff. And then just really trying to figure out how the coaches is, and I feel like Kenny was one of the realest coaches that I came across of that I have felt. So that was
Awesome.
cool.
So then obviously you take the official visits here recently this past weekend, and once you're
Yeah.
in the program, you're seeing these people in person, face to face. You're kind of experiencing the school, the university, the program, the football facility. When you
Hmm.
take that all in, what were some of the biggest things that made the deepest impression on you as to why Arizona State was the right fit for you?
Uh, I think the coaching staff, everybody had a lot of energy, and there was just everything was positive. So, and then like the facility and everything was different, like from where I came from. So, and then that was really the main part.
And then obviously you have a former teammate currently on the roster in Xavier Alford. Did you get any feedback from him or some of the other guys that might have had some input as to what the Sun Devil experience is like?
Oh yeah, yeah. They said they love it. Yeah. So and then Xavier told me out of the 3 schools he been at already, like this was like one of the best coaching staffs he been on. So
Getting to
I
know
talked to.
getting to know Kenny, of course. You mentioned just keeping it real with you. What jumped out to you about Kenny Dillingham in terms of a guy who's a leader of the program, obviously a young guy, but just at the head of Sun Devil football. What kind of things jumped out to you about what his leadership qualities are like?
It's real nice. So he just basically telling me like what my role would be, and like you got to come in and work and compete. And I already told him shit. I'm gonna do that no matter what. And then like so, and the way he was using me, but the way they said they gonna use me.
Talking about that usage, obviously, he's got a great offensive mind. Marcus Arroyo is a guy who, in his career, has put together some pretty potent offenses. What did they
Yeah.
tell you in terms of how they would like to use you, a guy with a very versatile skill set?
Me and Marcus watched film with me and my pops, and then like he put my film, like we watched my film, and then like related to what he'd do in his offense. So that was nice. And then he said he'd use me like as a back for sure, back, and then flex me out to like wide out to motioning, coming in, coming back in, screens, it's all stuff like that. Just give me a space.
When you look at terms of the entire offense as a whole, obviously in the way that they're going to use you, but just kind of this Kenny Dillingham offense that has really kind of put up throughout his career at his various stops, some pretty impressive numbers. What,
Yeah.
what what jumps out to you about the offense and the offensive philosophy that they want to run here in Tempe?
What jumps out to me is like the offense is very balanced. Like is he pass and he runs, so like he like his backs. So and then that's about it. It's very balanced to me.
And then obviously, throughout the recruiting process, Rashad Samples has been one of the key players for you, kind of developing that relationship, and so many others, new Sun Devils. What kind of jumps out to you about what Coach Samples brings in terms of as a recruiter and kind of a relationship builder?
It's just it jumps out to me pretty well because we got something coming in for sure. Like they building something new, building something. I think this year is going to be way different from last year for sure.
Now, obviously, Sean Aguano is a guy throughout his career has developed some really, really productive running backs and
Yeah.
versatile backs as well. I mean, Cam Scott, who did just about everything for the Sun
Yeah.
Devils a season ago. Obviously, you said you primarily playing running back. What kind of jumps out to you about your future position coach, Sean Aguano, and his track record of developing very productive college players?
That he teaches the little things, and he just let us play, and he teach us the little things um the second the second level, like try to the league stuff. So that stood out to me.
So obviously, a guy coming out of high school, a 5-star recruit, blue chip guy. Did you, obviously comes with that a lot of expectations. Did you ever feel any added pressure, in terms of just knowing that you were so highly regarded coming out of high school and you're one of those blue chip guys?
No, I never felt that pressure because I just know what I'm gonna do when I step on the field. So
So for any Sun Devil fans who might not have seen you in action, give our listeners and viewers a self scouting report. What can they expect to see from you in terms of your skill set and what you can do with the ball on the field?
You'll see a lot of shiftiness, a lot of speed, a lot of touchdowns for sure.
And so, ASU is obviously, a program that, Kenny Dillingham's kind of rebuilding from the ground up. And how appealing is that for you to kind of, have a chance to be kind of in on the ground floor and part of something, that's building and working in the way up?
Yeah, I'm just trying to help Kenny bring something special to this program for sure, and I think it's gonna happen because it look like we getting the right pieces, we getting it right. So I feel good about next year. I think we gonna have a winning season for sure.
Obviously, yeah, you're just one of many kind of big names that are coming in and have announced their commitments to the transfer portal so far.
Mhm.
Signing day, of course, is a day away. What's your overall thought on just kind of all of the along with you the incoming crop of new Sun Devil talent?
Sure. I think it's good. We getting a lot of talent and a lot of talent from all over the place. So, and I think that's good for us. And I think it's gonna have a next year gonna be way different for sure.
Now, of course, off the field, it seems like you have eyes on becoming going into broadcasting. At some point down the line, you kind of obviously the Cronkite School at ASU is a great fit for that.
Yeah.
What kind of drew you to that line? Obviously, whenever the football days are over and kind of moving into broadcasting.
Cause I just like talking about football. So like I feel like that's one big part of it. And then I'll be seeing all these ex NFL players after they done doing all on the TV talking about football and stuff. So that's pretty interesting to me.
So
Yeah.
looking ahead to next season, obviously, you have some returning talent in terms of Cam Scatterbood, Carlos Brooks,
Hmm.
Kyson Brown as well. 4-star freshman coming in, and Jason Brown as well. What do you feel like kind of the makeup of that Sun Devil backfield? Seems like a lot of talented guys with also a lot of different skill sets.
Yeah, it's just that's what we need. It's all different type of skill sets for different plays, different down and all that. So that's very good for us. And then always need talent to keep us fresh and to keep us pushing. So make us better.
So when you look ahead to next fall, for that 2024 season, what kind of goals have you set for yourself? What are the things that you'd like to achieve?
Uh, I ain't really got no goals right now for next season, but I for sure want to win though.
And then, looking kind of further down the road, you come into ASU with 3 seasons of eligibility left. When all is said and done, when you're able to, look back in the entirety of your college career one day, what are the things that you want to get out of the rest of your time in college and at Arizona State?
Just learn a lot and just have good connections with people around ASU. So just really connections and learning.
So for Sun Devil fans have seen a program that has had a couple down years, but with a lot of incoming newcomers and some intriguing talent, things are looking up. What would be your message to Sun Devil fans about what to expect, from this year's team and the next couple of years?
Expect a lot of shoot. Let me see. I say I just say expect a team that's finna go out and win, and then give it all they got, and then so that's about it.
All right, so some good stuff there from Raleek Brown. Now switching over to the defensive portal edition. So ASU had lost some linebackers last year, both during and after the season. So obviously a need to replenish that area, even though they're in their base defense, they only play 2 at a time. But I think they made a pretty good one, getting Cyrus Fiaseu over from San Diego State, 6 foot, 220 pounder, who as a sophomore last year was not just a defensive MVP, Joe. He was the team MVP for the Aztecs.
Yeah, statistically, he led the team in tackles, TFLs, sacks. He had 3 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries. I don't care who you are. Those are the kind of things that you look for. With these transfers, you wonder, okay, were they a highly sought-after recruit who maybe just didn't get that much time? They're looking for a new opportunity, or is it somebody that has earned his billing, perhaps at a group of 5 or a smaller scale school, looking to step up a notch. That's what, he falls into, which category he falls into, because that productivity is something special. And, San Diego State, they've had their ups and downs over the last few years, but that's still, a notable program with some reputation there. So that's something that he comes in. And so far, I'd say him and Brown are my 2 most intriguing additions. He's somebody that, maybe in a similar vein of like a Cam Scadaboo last year, where it's like, man, there are pieces about, what I see on paper. I don't know anything about this guy. I'd never seen him play. But the things I see on paper or digital paper on the internet machine, that's real intriguing. Now, can that work on the next step up? Now, obviously, his step from the Mountain West to the Big 12, man, I was about to say that. I was about to say the P word there. That's going to be a step, not quite as much, from the FCS level to the Pac-12 that Scadaboo did. So I'm expecting him to be something special. He's one as far as like an instant gut reaction, really intrigued by what he brings to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Just put some numbers on there. 66 tackles, 11.5 TFLs, 5.5 sacks, 5 pass breakups, 5 quarterback hurries, and as you mentioned, the 3 forced fumbles and fumble recovery. I love those linebackers who just fill up all the categories, like Chris Young-esque. Just guys sideline to sideline, but just like they do everything. It's not just, maybe a middle linebacker gets a bunch of tackles, not a whole lot of splash plays. This guy seems to do it all.
Yeah, and that's what you need when you're really trying to make a mark on defense. You get someone who's established, who can be a leader out there, who's got these accolades, whatever whether that means much or not. That's something that he did. That's at a position where you've got Tate Romney coming back, you've got Caleb McCullough coming back, but you really want to beef up that position group. So that's something, once again, that this is an addition that I think ASU fans can be proud of, because I know that there've been some folks on social media, message boards, things like that look at some of the transfer portal additions over the last year since Kenny Dillingham, took the reins at ASU, that they might look good on paper, didn't really add up, or whatever the case may be. But I think this is one that folks should look at as a slam dunk.
Yeah, and of course, after adding Jordan Crook over from Arkansas last week as well, so another guy who, when his limited opportunities, made the most of that. Obviously, not putting the level of production as of yet as Zyrus did, but so good. Beefing up that linebacker group. That of course, losing Trey Brown and a couple of the mid-year guys, guys that jumped into the portal. Good way to replenish that position group in year 2 of Brian Ward's scheme. And on the back end of this defense, it's the safety spot. Of course, you're losing Chris Edmonds as one of your starters, but you're getting Xavier Alford back. You're having team MVP Shamari Simmons come back as well. So why not add another 4-star playmaker on that back line as well? Kamari Wilson is coming over from the Florida Gators, 6 foot, 205-pounder, a former 4-star prospect in the class of 2022, a top 60 overall national player in that 2022 class. Not too shabby. In his true freshman year, appeared in 13 games, tallied 39 tackles, 1.5 TFLs, had a pass defense and a forced fumble as well. Only played in 3 games last year. Had some stuff going on that ultimately led to him redshirt and exploring his options. And he's coming out west. You'll hear from him in a moment. He's excited to finally leave the state of Florida and kind of venture out. But in terms of an explosive playmaker in a position of strength, this is, whereas maybe offensive line is you need to address it. This is just maybe adding strength on strength.
Yeah, a moment ago mentioned about how with some of these transfers you look at, okay, was this guy a highly rated recruit who's looking for a change of scenery, or is it someone that's maybe overachieving and looking to take that next step up? He falls in that very first category, as you mentioned. He was the number 60 overall recruit according to Rivals for the 2022 class. Other evaluations, he was the 3rd best safety prospect in the country and the number 10 overall player in the state of Florida. The number 10 player in a lot of states, that might not be a top dog, but in the state of Florida, which
pretty
is
good.
Up there with, Texas and California among the very best in the country. Yeah, if you're in the top 10, that's a very, very good thing. So, yeah, if you're looking at that recruiting pedigree, he brings some very, very intriguing background there. And as you mentioned, he redshirted, so he's got 3 years to play. So that's one heck of a pickup, a guy that could very well be in that starting lineup. In the secondary, as far as like the safety nickel positions, you lose Chris Edmonds, you lose Jordan Clark to Notre Dame, so you do bring some guys back. Get Xavier Alford back on the field after sitting out. You got Shamari Simmons back, and now he's one that can add into that fold as well.
He's a guy that really likes to play aggressive football and get after the ball. So, let's get to know Kamari Wilson. All right, here with new Sun Devil safety, Kamari Wilson. Kamari, obviously you jump in the portal from Florida and you're weighing your options. What were the things that you were really looking for at your next destination, and how did Arizona State kind of check those boxes for you?
Honestly, I was just looking for a great fit, just to be around great people and, you know, someone that have a plan for me and future for the team to win. Because I love to win. I feel like I'm an elite competitor. I love to compete. And Coach Dillingham, the team he's building, he's building it around competition, and we trying to kick this thing around and win and do it together. And the people that's coming to the university is people that want to be a part of the university as well. And when I was speaking with him, he told me how he could use me and his plans for me and the plans for the team and the team goals. And it was just so genuine, and I really respected it because he kept it honest as well. And it just kind of felt like home.
So obviously you come out here on a recent visit and you get to see things kind of up close and personal, meet these folks face to face. All told, during your visit, what are the things that kind of jumped out to you most and made the biggest impression?
The biggest impression. I would say what kind of jumped out at me, I never came to the West Coast, never came to Arizona. In my mind, I was thinking desert, but it's pretty nice out there. And the weather is amazing. I thought I was gonna sweat, but I didn't really sweat because the humidity is not bad as Florida. And it kind of shocked me that the weather was so great here and it always like this. I'm like, wow, it's like this every day.
Well, for about 6 months, yeah. Then we have to pay the bill in the summer when it gets like 115, 110. But yeah, you know, as we say out here, it's a dry heat. So yeah, I've been to Florida a couple times. You know, it's not nearly as humid like that. So you get to avoid that. But I think another factor. You're kind of reuniting with Jaden Rashada, a guy that you know pretty well. What was that connection like? What kind of things did he tell you when you're kind of going through the decision making process?
Going through going through the decision making process, Rashada definitely called me, and he kept it honest with me. He told me what they were building and how they needed a few more pieces to make it perfect, and how that the team really blond and clicked together, and the coaches really care about them. And that's what I like to hear, because of a players from a player's perspective, it helped me trust them and what they were telling me a little better. And it's just love around there. Everybody loved the game of football, and it's the main thing around there. Ball, it's the main thing. And that's why I said the players that's going to Arizona State wants to be a part of that organization and wants to play for that team. Is nothing else.
So of course, you as a top defensive back, obviously Jaden really well. What's your scouting report on what Jaden Rashada? Obviously, something a guy you'll have to face in practice. What does he bring to the Sun Devil squad?
Oh yeah, I told you I'm an elite competitor, so I talk my trash about picking them off and stuff. But Jaden Rashada is a really good player, and he's been good for a minute, and I know he's just gonna evolve and get better. So knowing that I got him as my quarterback, and we're gonna compete and get each other better, I really enjoy that, and I'm really gonna enjoy that. And that was another big piece of me going over there. And it's just the coaching staff that Coach Dillingham put together is elite, from the strength coaches to the on the field coaches to the janitors. They're all elite. To the trainers, they're elite. And I kind of got a taste of it when I went on a visit there.
So you mentioned that Kenny Dillingham is kind of really fostering a culture here of competition, and as he likes to say all throughout this first year is you're going to work harder while having the most fun than any place in the country. So when you see that culture of competition, but also of family, what's your impressions of Kenny Dillingham just kind of overall as a leader of a major college football program?
My impression of him is he's kind of on the younger side. he looks young, so like he can talk to me. It's like easier for him to talk to me, and he's just just someone great to look up to. Just on the real, just for advice and with life. And it's not just football; it's with life, and he's his biggest goal is to make me the best version of me I can be on the field and the academics, just easily by networking around campus. They have so many tools and materials to make you a better person with football and by using football, because it's not just football.
Any ASU fans out there who might not have caught you in action for the Gators or seen any film, give our listeners and viewers kind of a scouting report, what to expect, what you bring to the field, and what kind of skills that you bring to a defense.
I believe I bring hard hitting ability that's gonna come down and hit. The intensity is gonna be high. I just can't wait. I'm excited. I'm excited just talking about it. You're gonna get a little bit of everything out of me, and I'm pretty sure guys kind of heard about me, but I'm gonna bring it. I'm gonna bring it. I don't really like to talk. I like to show, and it's gonna come out first game.
So obviously, you bring your skill set to a defense under defensive coordinator Brian Ward, a defense that really is known to kind of be aggressive and attacking and bring the fight to an opposing offense. What jumps out to you about this Sun Devil defensive scheme and how your skills fit?
Well, I'm pretty aggressive, so he's gonna use me in a way to. That's another reason why I picked Arizona State. My select skill set, the abilities that I have that I'm best at, is going to be used on the field. And the abilities I need to work on, we had a plan about getting those better. And that's what stuck out to me about how I could develop and get better. So when he went over those certain things I needed to get better at and the certain things that I'm good at right now, it really got me, because I want to be the best Kamari Wilson I can be and the best player I can be. And he emphasized that for me, and I did genuinely love that. And I love the scheme that he has, because it's going to show the abilities that I can do best on the field.
And then you're joining a safety group that has a couple of guys. Shamari Simmons was just most recently the team MVP for the 2023 season. Xavier Alford's finally get his chance to play after having to sit out last year. A couple of very talented, kind of young up and comers, and Josiah Cox and Montana Warren. What's your overall impression of just kind of that group of safeties and how the competition amongst you guys is going to make all of you better?
Honestly, I'm excited. I'm excited to work. I'm excited to meet my brothers and work and be the best defensive back in the country, best defense in the country. That's what I'm excited to be. And there's going to be a lot of competition that's going to get us better, and I love it.
So you're a guy that entered college as a blue chip recruit, one of the a 4 or 5 star guy. Did you ever feel that the pressure of having to live up to those expectations?
I wouldn't say pressures. I feel like I genuinely feel like I have expectations for myself, and I have goals for myself, and I will do anything to reach those goals, and I have to, make a plan to reach those goals. And there's no really pressure, because I believe in my talents and I put in the work. So it kind of makes me more confident when I go out there and play, and it makes me more peace of mind because I know the work I put in.
So you obviously have a couple of years under your belt in the SEC. Now heading to Arizona State, which is in the process heading over to the Big 12. What jumped out to you? What kind of experiences from your time in the SEC do you think can translate well to playing some Big 12 ball?
Just playing teams like Tennessee, the tempo's fast, and I know, we're we're in the Pac-12 last year, and a lot of teams that we played that's going to the Big 12, the tempo's a little faster, and I'm kind of used to it because certain teams really move fast on the tempo part, and I'm really just excited to see the difference because I played in the SEC, but I haven't played in this conference yet. But I'm pretty shocking to succeed at a high level in any conference, honestly. But I'm just ready. I'm excited to see what it's about, honestly.
Now you mentioned that coming out on your visit was maybe the first time heading this far west. What are you looking forward to, and kind of making that adjustment from life and as a Florida guy to now here in the desert?
Honestly, you guys might laugh at me. First thing I want to do when I get back on campus is climb Mountain A. I'm excited. I want to climb it. I've never been on a mountain, never been that close to a mountain.
Ah, okay. Yeah, A Mountain's definitely a Sun Devil rite of passage.
And I seen it on my visit, and I was like, can I climb that mountain? They was like, yeah, people actually climb it.
Yeah, there's a nice path and everything.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So what kind of things from Florida do you think the valley out here needs? What are some Florida staples that you think that would be nice if they made their way out to the valley with you?
I would say I haven't seen Waffle House.
We have Waffle House out here.
We have Waffle House?
There's a couple out here, yeah. So you're good.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. I mean, it's like Arizona, kind of like a mixture of everything. Like, it has the palm trees like Florida, and it's like the city vibes is like California, and it looks like Texas. It's just, you could get a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
and it's hot. I love the heat. I'd rather be hot than cold.
Oh, well, then June through September is going to be your favorite time of year, and there's skiing just an hour and a half north. There's lakes, yeah, so it's got everything for you. So when you look ahead to next fall in this 2024 season, the first in the maroon and gold, what kind of goals do you want to have you set for yourself? What are the things that you want out of year one as a Sun Devil?
Honestly, year one as a Sun Devil, first goal is to win out the conference. Second goal would be to be the number one defense in the country. And third goal would be to win it all national championship. That's what I want. My goals are big. Team goals first. Then when you succeed as a team, then personal goals will be accomplished.
All right, so ASU has a lot of incoming talents and some intriguing players that are going to be joining the ranks here for spring ball here coming up and also the season ahead. But, let's check in on some of the other former Sun Devils who have now officially found homes elsewhere. Starting off, perhaps with one that we didn't get to last week, quarterback Drew Pine kind of taking a little atypical route, whereas, some of the other guys that we're going to talk about have committed to their next program. Drew Pine is committing to the classroom next year back at South Bend.
Yeah, that's it. Did he slap a football off the table and grab a pencil out of his pocket or something like that? Yeah, so he's basically leaving ASU, going back to Notre Dame to finish up his undergraduate degree at Notre Dame, and then plans to pursue his football career elsewhere after that, not at Notre Dame, from what I've gathered, right? Which, so I don't know the details of it. Is he paying his own way for a semester? Because he's not going to be on the football team, right? So who knows? Those are logistics I'm sure that he's already worried about. So, hey, that's interesting, and I'm curious if we'll see more folks go down this path, because a guy like him who has that degree or will have that degree, he's got a lot of opportunities to really move around, because once you get that, you can pretty much come and go as you please, depending on how much eligibility you got.
Yeah, that's one thing that he noted, is that it's a degree from Notre Dame, so it carries some clout. So it's, a really legitimately good school. So having that degree is, pretty good. And so obviously the way the quarterbacks go these days in the portal, I'm sure maybe he'll find, a good spot that he gets to do that. But wherever he goes, he'll be armed with a Notre Dame degree for the next phase of his life. So congrats to Drew, in his limited time here. I found him to be, obviously a smart guy, an engaging guy. So good luck to him. Now to the three players that have announced their commitments to various spots, starting with the guy who probably jumped in the portal earliest, and this guy who did this during the season, a local product out of Saguaro, Will Schaefer. He is now heading to Utah State.
Yeah, and that's a heck of a setup for him, to get a fresh slate, a new opportunity at the group of 5 level, to where he might have a easier path to being a starter. Obviously, he was here, so it's not that he couldn't do that at the Power 5 level, but that sort of opportunity, might be something where, in addition to that new start that it grants him, an opportunity for playing time and exposure as well as he wraps up his career.
All right, so another local guy that is going to be heading elsewhere, but another one that ASU will, like Jalen Conyers, will see next year as part of the conference slate. Left tackle Isaiah Glass is going to Oklahoma State. He's joining the Cowboys, and so that'll be interesting because there's a spot where ASU is going to be heading up to Stillwater at some point whenever the Big 12 releases the schedule next season.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting one as far as the destination, but it makes sense now if you think about it, as far as traditional Big 12 schools. If this were like a year or two ago, for someone who leaves ASU, who's an Arizona native, to go to a Big 12 school would have been a little odd, but it makes more sense now because they're going to be playing schools around this area. So we will see how he does. Obviously the departure from ASU was not the best that one could imagine, but we'll keep an eye on how that progresses over there with him as he starts his career as a Cowboy.
And probably the most notable departure so far this cycle, ASU's lone all Pac-12 team representative, defensive end BJ Green. Now, this a year ago might have stung a little bit more given the destination, but thanks to conference realignment, not so much. He is heading up to, I guess he missed Daniel Ngata a little bit. He's heading up to Washington to play for the Huskies.
Yeah, and that one was a little interesting too. There were some blurbs that I had heard, maybe other parts of the country, maybe closer to home for him. I believe he's from Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. So, maybe something in the South or the ACC, but obviously, playing at Washington, playing for Washington, he'll be going to some interesting parts of the country as a member of the Big Ten Conference. So, yeah, he's going to face some stiff competition for sure with the Huskies, but, they're a team that, obviously at a minimum will be coming off a college football playoff appearance and perhaps more.
Yeah, so, good luck to BJ. Obviously, a very bright kid, a future mechanical engineer, and obviously he did pretty darn good for himself as during his Sun Devil career, leading the team in sacks. What was it, all 3 years? Yeah, or did he not overtake Dorba? At least the first 2. He did well. We'll go with that. All right, so let's turn our attention now to ASU's crop of high school signees and this day 1 of the early signing period, which does run through Friday the 22nd. Let's start off, Joe, on the offensive side of the ball and in the trenches. This is one area where, obviously the team need both now and in the future is pretty pressing. So ASU was able to get 4 signees this cycle, although in essence it's going to work out to 3 because one of them is going on a LDS mission and will essentially be part of the 2026 class. Let's talk to starting off with a guy that you'll hear from in a little bit later on, Champs Westbrooks, because he's a guy who committed to this program way back in June. He's out of LA, 6'5", 260-pounder, a 3-star prospect per Rivals, and he's a guy that given that physique probably is going to be in line for the typical path of redshirting this first year and getting his legs here, but a smart kid and also one that has an All-American Bowl invite coming up.
Yeah, he had what appears to be a great senior season because he really shot up the ranks, got some recognition, and that Army All-America Bowl, that's a big deal. A lot of some of the best college football players of all time, some great Sun Devils. You think about the memories, that kind of ties in also. We were talking about signing day and how climactic it kind of used to be. That was a big deal of it. You remember like Jarrell Robinson and Eno Benjamin and good old Scrappy Norman making their decisions at the Army All-America games. So, yeah, there's a name for y'all. So that's a huge honor for a guy to play. And I know that there are more All-American games than there used to be. So, there are more opportunities, but that is the most historic one. That's a big deal. He had offers from schools, including Louisville, Cal, but as you mentioned, he shut it down in June and never really wavered, never looked back. So he's someone that you really think that maybe not necessarily this year, but you never say never. We learned that this past year. But he could be a fixture for quite a while, potentially, hopefully, at an offensive tackle position.
All right, so moving on to Samisi Tonga, out of Salt Lake City, another 3-star prospect per Rivals, 6'4", 310 pounder. So you got to like the frame there, and perhaps, guy that projects on the inside.
And he's the one from Salt Lake who decommitted from Oklahoma State to sign with ASU. Offers from the likes of Arizona, Nebraska, Oregon, and Utah. He's from Salt Lake, so he wonders the hometown team going after him. They offered him a scholarship. So on the surface, this one's very intriguing.
Yeah, and then now moving to another 3-star prospect. This is the one that will not be around these parts, at least for a couple years, is Philly Saluni out of Hawaii, 6'5", 272 pounder. But one of those things that, perhaps the BYUs and the Utahs, those guys that go on those missions, they mature a little bit. So by the time they come back, they might be a little bit ready to go. More so than your typical true freshman.
Taking a concept like the Shohei Ohtani of deferring his contributions to ASU until a couple years from now, something like that. But yeah, he had offers from likes of Cal, Hawaii, obviously he lives there, Texas State, Washington State, some others. So, he's a guy that got some attention, even though this was something that seemed like a foregone conclusion. So he's got some reputation there in a good way. And a couple years from now, ASU sure going to need offensive linemen then, just as they do now.
So last Saturday, we talked about ASU was getting commit after commit from transfer portal additions. They also were able to do one flip from the prep ranks in terms of the offensive line, getting Terrell Kim out of Medford, Oregon, who was at one time an Oregon State commit. He flipped, is now signed with the Sun Devils, 6'3", 325 pounder. Per Rivals, he is a 2-star prospect, and it's kind of interesting. I know we use Rivals as the base, but just kind of the discrepancies. He's the 3rd ranked overall Sun Devil in this class on the 24/7 site. So just kind of see. So obviously, some folks out there think that he has got some pretty good potential coming up.
And there's another one we'll get to. I don't know if it's something about the high school players in the state of Oregon, because there's another that ASU has that there are some discrepancies on how he's evaluated as well. As you mentioned, big dude. I mean, this is shaping up. I don't know how the last time ASU had, like a half dozen 320-pound offensive linemen or so, whatever the number is going to be, because we've been talking about a few over the course of this show. So that's some beef right there. He had some solid group of 5 offers from likes of Fresno State, Nevada, San Jose State. I mean, it is what it is, and it's business, so you don't feel too bad, but you kind of feel for Oregon State because, my goodness, they're just getting depleted of everything, coaches, players. It makes sense. It is what it is, but, man, that's a shame there for the Beavers, but whatever. You know what? ASU benefits from that.
Yeah, and actually that kind of reminds me. I talked to Javon Robinson, ASU's incoming defensive back from Washington State, and he flat out said, the fact that I would – in danger of not playing Power 5 football. I view myself as a Power 5 player, so I entered into the portal. So you're perhaps seeing that attrition. It does suck to see that, but it's one of the unfortunate aspects. But on to more positive things. Let's start talking about some of the playmakers in this class, starting with perhaps the crown jewel, at least the highest rated, Jason Brown, running back out of Seattle, 5'10", 195 pounder. Full 4 stars across the board, and also not just, I believe, an All-American Bowl candidate, but the Max Preps All-American as well.
Yeah, this has been a big deal since he committed to ASU just a little over 2 weeks ago on the 5th of December. Ranked by Rivals, number 205 player overall, 14th ranked running back out of Seattle, as you mentioned. Yeah, Max Preps has him as a first-team All-American. Also has, I believe, had him as a finalist for their National Player of the Year award. I think he had something like 2,700 all-purpose yards or total yards, 30-plus touchdowns. Unbelievable stuff there. The offer sheet speaks for itself. Alabama, Florida State, Penn State, Texas A&M. And of
pretty
course,
good schools.
Not so bad. They're usually pretty good at the game of American football. And you got Oregon and Washington up there. Those are ones that obviously catch your attention as well. We talked about, guys who had certain reasons for leaving Power 5 schools or schools that will no longer be Power 5 schools, rather. He's someone that was in this fertile territory for the likes of the Ducks and the Huskies. And you wonder how in the world he got out of there. It's ASU's benefit in that because, man, this is a highly acclaimed running back. And this is someone that I think that, can partner up with the likes of Cam Scadaboo and DeCarlos Brooks here the next year. And then if all goes right, he can be the guy for ASU moving forward beyond that.
You're looking at maybe a triple-headed Brown backfield with Kyson Brown, Raleek Brown, Jason Brown coming up here in the future. It's got to be. There you go. It's going to be obviously an incredible pull from Jason Mons, ASU tight end coach and the recruiter up there, because not only did he factor into landing Jason Brown, but he also landed the commitment and was able to maintain the commitment into a signing of tight end Jaden Fortier out of Oregon, 6'5", 215-pounder. Now, per Rivals, he's a 3-star, but on the 24/7 site, he's a 4-star prospect. I believe that every other player that we've talked about and also on the defense, the two sites are in line, but still, Fortier coming off a monster senior season on both sides of the ball, and obviously the team need at tight end as well. Unfortunately, of course, as we talked about, tore his ACL in a state playoff game, but so he'll be out for spring, and maybe he can be back in time for the fall.
Yeah, he was the one I was referring to when we were talking about Terrell Kim and how players from the state of Oregon, there are some commonalities about some discrepancies in their rankings. Rivals, I looked through it, and they rank 45 tight ends, and he ain't one of them, which is wild to me. So they don't even have him in the top 45 at his position. He doesn't even have a position ranking, according to Rivals.
That's wild.
That is wild to me. And this is the guy that blew up. I think, was he the Gatorade Player of the Year in Oregon, if I'm not mistaken, or he had some state Player of the Year recognition.
He just dominated on both sides of the ball. Just a absolutely dominant year.
Yeah, like I saw numbers of him catching, 200 plus receiving yards kind of with regularity out there. So, hey, you know what? Whatever. These recruiting rankings, it's cool like now. Like this is like the day that it counts. And then it really never counts ever again, to be honest with you. So that's a fleeting moment. He committed to ASU on June 30th. And as you mentioned, as his season blew up and being from Oregon and the success, obviously, of the Ducks, and again, to throw like Washington Huskies out there as well, you just figured that one of those two teams would come in, because ASU fans, the battered fan syndrome thing, ASU fans have seen this far too many times than they can count. It's usually with players like in the Southeast or things like that, and Josh Dobbs, where a guy is committed to ASU for a long period of time, and then late stages of the game, the premier program comes in, like Darrell Williams, who was committed to ASU, lived in Louisiana. LSU came in at the last minute, swooped him up. Johnny Paul went to Miami. Dobbs going to Tennessee. So that's why I think a lot of folks were kind of thinking back to then, the ones who've been following recruiting for a while, and thinking it might even be like a foregone conclusion that, okay, Oregon or Washington, they're going to come knocking on Fortier's door, in early December, and the game will change. Never happened. He stayed committed, and that was in like the public space as well. Like he was just very open about how he's not going anywhere other than Arizona State. So you love to see a guy stick to his word, and once that injury heals, and certainly hope that it does in time for him to play in 2024 if possible, because with Jalen Conyers gone, Messiah Swinson gone, even though Bryce Pierre really brings a lot to the table and there are other depth players there, Fortier's someone that really could jump into action right away if he's 100% physically.
Yeah, so we'll be monitoring his progress on the rehab road back. And then another playmaker ASU added to the ranks was a wide receiver, Zechariah Sample from, of course, Katy, Texas. The Texas to Tempe pipeline is flowing well at 3-star prospect, a high 3-star per Rivals rankings, 5'10", 165-pounder. But he's a guy that I know a lot of folks in that building are extremely excited about. Now, with the depth at wide receiver ASU has coming back, perhaps doesn't have to be pressing a duty too early, but for the future, there's a lot of excitement around Sample.
Yeah, he's been committed to ASU for quite a while. Did so March 22nd of this year. So just about 9 months was he a Sun Devil before he signed. So you love to see guys stick to that. As you mentioned, he brings some athleticism, some burst. You watch his film, the dude's got some speed. So you wonder if he's going to be maybe year one of those guys going to get, like we saw this year, get a little action in those 3-4 games, get your feet wet a little bit, maintain that red shirt, or who knows, the best players are going to play, and you need playmakers all over the place. So he's someone that, might be able to give you something there. And, for people who are watching at home or scoring at home, it's Sample, not Samples. So I don't think there's no relation between the coach or anything like that. Just a little coincidence there, but he's someone that brings some talent to this team.
All right, so one other player to talk about on this side of the ball, potential kicker, also potential punter, a local guy from Scottsdale, played at Horizon, Canyon Floyd, 3-star prospect, which is nice to start seeing the services kind of show some love to the specialist. A guy who had an absolutely dominant last couple of seasons at Horizon. A guy, I believe 2 years ago, averaged over 50 yards per boot, and Sun Devil fans who saw the punting woes from this past season, having a dependable leg back there being quite a relief.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen issues with punting. I mean, they had a lot of guys out there, injury issues all over the place, eligibility issues as far as, trying to maintain red shirts, things like that. It was a wild year of punter. When you're seeing your running back be probably your most consistent punter, it's a wild year in that regard. And Darlon Ghetto was fairly solid, had some good kicks, some up and down as well. So yeah, Sun Devil fans, I'm sure, are eager for some new faces and some highly qualified players to be in the fold at any of the kicking spots.
All right, so that's a look at what ASC was able to do on the offensive side of the ball in these early signing days. And let's talk to one of those guys who signed on the dotted line. And I guess they don't fax anymore; it's all digital. But Champs Westbrooks coming over from LA is, as we talked about, an intriguing part of the offensive line future. All right, Champ. So obviously, this is bringing to a close kind of the recruiting phase. And how good does it feel to kind of put that behind you and officially become a Sun Devil and get the college career underway?
It feels great. I can't wait to get out there. I'm happy to not have any more stress.
Yeah, how stressful was the process for you? Obviously, a number of schools, a talented player coming after you. So, how much of a process was this for you?
It was a very big and long process. It was very stressful, but it was a great and fun process as well. I had a lot of fun meeting with coaches from all across the country and talking and seeing how their programs work and getting to know them. But I'm happy I found home.
So, as you're going through this process and you're looking at the next level, what were some of the things that were really the most important for you in terms of, ultimately which university and which football program you landed at?
The most important thing was probably something that could get me to the NFL. That was the ultimate goal. It has been since I've been a kid. So it's really looking at that. And then if that doesn't work out, also going to a place that would have a good backup plan for me and give me a great education so that I could strive at the next level.
So, obviously, as you're getting to know Arizona State, the university, the football program, obviously with a relatively new staff, what were some of the things that kind of jumped out to you most that made you feel that was the right place for you?
It was very family oriented, and I liked that a lot. The coaches were super nice and super cool. I met a lot of family members, and that was just great because it feels so close and tight knit, and I love that.
So, on a recent visit, what were some of the things that, getting to see things, getting recruited, over calls, texts, and such like that is one thing. But, when you're actually at a place and kind of immersed in it, what were some of the things that really kind of jumped out to you and kind of reinforced that this was the right decision?
The coaches' attitudes, they were just great. They were very real, and they didn't tell me what I wanted to hear, but told me what I could and had to do to get out on the field faster, get out there and be ready to start and play for them. And then also meeting some of the guys on the team was also a great experience, and I really loved it, and that was a very dope visit.
So getting to know Kenny Dillingham, one of the youngest coaches in the entire country, what's that process been like, and what kind of jumps out to you in terms of Kenny as a leader of a major college football program?
He's just very passionate, and you can really tell. When you first meet him, he's ecstatic and jumpy, and I love that about him. And it seems like he's a great coach. So I can't wait to play under him.
So as you're getting to know, obviously he's got a tremendous background and pedigree as an offensive mastermind. New offensive coordinator Marcus Arroyo has obviously got some pretty impressive things on his resume as well. So when you look at kind of, what those guys are going to implement in terms of, the offense and the scheme in 2024 and beyond, what are some of the things that really kind of jump out to you most and kind of impress you about the future Sun Devil offense?
I liked how, what's the word I'm looking for? I like how big their offensive itinerary or mind is. I like how Kenny was using Scatterbo as a quarterback, even using his disadvantages to his advantages and making it work. And I like how he used just all the resources around him to make the best of what he could do. So when everybody's healthy and we have everyone back, I can't wait to see what we can actually do.
Obviously your future position coach Saga Tuatele obviously is, had a bunch thrown at him, with so many injuries, in particular hitting his unit, but week in, week out, put together, a pretty good line. What were some of the things that kind of jumped out to you about Saga, and what gives you confidence that he's going to be a good guy for you or to develop you towards your goal of the NFL?
I've heard a lot about him, and he's a great coach. I've heard just only good things about him, and he's been recruiting me since before Arizona State, so I trust him, and I trust his ability to get me to the next level and where I really want to be in the future.
You mentioned obviously kind of the ingenuity at play with the Sun Devils in terms of being forced to kind of turn those disadvantages last year into advantages. As you watch your future program kind of go through kind of the first year of a rebuild, and just obviously so many injuries and other factors at play. What were your overall thoughts about what you saw from this 2023 group of Sun Devils?
I saw a group that didn't give up. It was very fun to watch them on the field, and I I think I'm gonna fit in very well. I really like what I saw, and I just like the team.
So when you look at the future teammates in that offensive line room, some of the guys that are going to be returning and playing with you in the trenches, who are some of the returning veteran Sun Devils you're excited to play with?
I'm excited to play with Leaf. He's really nice, really cool dude, and I really like him. And then my host Max is a big guy. He's really cool, and I'm excited to play with both of them and the rest of our line.
Now, since your commitment, you've been pretty active on social media, trying to rally other folks, other recruits, and other guys to join you here in Tempe. Has that always just been kind of something that you've kind of naturally been a kind of a leader in that respect, or is that just something that's kind of been worked on over the years?
It has been pretty worked on, but I would say it comes pretty natural because on that visit, then we all had a great time, and seeing 6 of the 7 of us being committed as of right now is just crazy. I just want to go, 7 for 7 and have us all there, and so we can have a great time out there.
One of the things that really kind of jumped out to me and impressed me about you and your background is just that you're active in the community and giving back and helping others. Where did the genesis of that begin, and how are some of the ways that you're looking to continue that once you make the move out here to Tempe?
It really started at Loyola my freshman year when I really got the opportunity to go and do community service, and it was really pushed on us. So that's probably where it really started. But when I get out to Tempe, I plan on keeping that going and using all the opportunities to my advantage and just going out there and helping the community in any way.
So obviously, as a Southern California, LA guy, Southern California has long been kind of a hotbed for ASU in terms of, where they go to, get a lot of players and obviously a ton of talent out there. Overall, and now with a year under the belt, at ASU with Kenny Dillingham and staff, what do you feel is kind of the view of ASU in Southern California and kind of LA?
At school, a lot of guys bring it up, how Arizona beat us, but I'd like to tell them that we weren't at our best. We had a lot of injuries, and they haven't, seen what we can really do. But I think they'll see that next year for sure.
A recent honor for you getting the All-American Bowl invite. How nice was that to kind of cap your prep career with such a big honor?
It was very exciting. I loved it. It was very important to me. I went out there sophomore year to the combine, and I just had a great time at the combine. To be back and be actually playing the game is great.
So for any ASU fans who might not have caught you in action or seen your huddle film, what give our listeners a self-scouting report. What can they expect to see from you when you get on the field in terms of your skills?
I'm nasty, man. I like to hit, so I'm really, and I'm also willing to play anywhere on the field. Anywhere they need me, I'm willing to do whatever, just as long as I get to show my talents and get to play.
So obviously this is a process at Arizona State that's building towards a pretty bright future, year one in the books. How attractive is it for you to see a situation where you can kind of get in on the ground floor and be one of the key guys to help elevate this program back to where Kenny wants it to get or wants to bring it?
It's very attractive. It really is a great opportunity for me and some of the other, incoming guys to really build this team and make it into a powerhouse or it's some team that can, just go back to bowl games and, dominate. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
What are you looking forward to most in terms of just, year one in Tempe, just about 9 months away from running through that tunnel by the Pat Tillman statue and taking the field in maroon and gold?
I'm really looking forward to just getting out there. I'm very excited to play college football. I can't wait. I love the atmosphere. I've been to a few games. It's great, and I can't wait to get out there and play.
So when you look ahead to that 2024 season, do you have any goals that you've set forth? What are some of the things that you'd like to accomplish in year one?
Get that cut back. Definitely beat Arizona. That's a big one.
Great answer.
Also get us to a bowl game. That would be great too. I can't wait to help the team get there.
All right, let's switch over to defense and look at the new crop of prep guys coming in on that side of the ball, starting off with a 4-star prospect, one you'll hear from here in a little bit. Tony-Louis Nkuba from Louisville, Texas, 6 foot, 170-pounder, as mentioned, 4-star prospect per Rivals, also on 24/7. But one of the elite guys in this class, a big-bodied guy, perhaps projects a little bit to safety. Kind of an interesting story. Came to the U.S. in the 4th grade and just kind of played football just because it was something his friends did, and then all of a sudden realized that once he got to high school, he pretty good at it, and yes, it is ultimately years later to ASU's benefit.
Yeah, and he is the highest rated defensive recruit that ASU has. According to Rivals, there are 2 4-star prospects that signed with the Sun Devils here today, and Jason Brown on offense is the other. So he takes top billing, does Tony-Louis Nkuba, as far as the highest rated defender in this class, at least so far.
Part of a really strong group of defensive backs for the Sun Devils now. 3 other high 3-star prospects, including a local guy, Plas Johnson, 6'1", 164-pounder. This is a group. When you look at these 4 DBs, all 6 foot or above, along with Chris Johnson out of Texas, 6'1", 175-pounder. Those 2 guys, perhaps, with very athletic, very, intriguing prospects, probably projecting more to corner.
Yeah, kind of is a flashback, a throwback a little bit to the previous coaching staff who had like their prototype size that they needed to be for every single position. Plas Johnson, very interesting prospect, obviously from Chaparral High School, as is his head coach now at ASU. He's someone that was a highly, highly effective offensive player. I think he went for well over 1,000 yards, at least as a junior. Not sure what his offensive totals were as a senior. Someone who's a two-way threat that they really like in the secondary. He's someone that was a borderline 4-star as well. So as far as a position group overall, I know it's a big one because of the amount of guys they throw out there with the 5 DBs typically at all times. I think ASU did a great job recruiting the secondary from its high school class. I think to me that's clearly like the position group as a whole, a general one, that things were done very, very well.
Running out that quartet, another high 3-star, Rodney Bamaj out of Dickinson, Texas. 6 foot, 175-pounder, another DB that adds, it's a really good, as you mentioned, a really good crop of young talent to a group that has some returning guys in that as well. You're adding Javon Robinson over from Washington State is perhaps, looked at to be more of that leadership role with D Ford and Ro Torrance leaving. So you really like what they were able to do. And of course, hitting that Texas pipeline with Carrington and Samples is paying off.
Yeah, that was something that they were hitting hard even before the Big 12 announcement came to fruition for ASU. So that was, a stroke of good fortune there for that all to be connected. So we'll see what it translates to on the field. ASU has had some good ones from the state of Texas, the likes of Benjamin, Christian Sam, as far as, the last 5 to 10 years or so. And so these ones will likely come ready-made because it's very, very competitive, as we all know, in the state of Texas when it comes to the high school football.
And the ASU did sign one guy who does project to play linebacker at the next level. He played a little bit of DB in San Diego, and that's Martell Hughes, 6'2", 195-pounder. Obviously, a guy that looked at to kind of bulk up and grow into that role as a linebacker for the Sun Devils.
Yeah, so he's someone that at a minimum adds some depth to begin with. Like you mentioned, you figure you probably want to get, at least 20, 25 pounds on him if you possibly can. Get him in there with Coach Joe Connolly and get to work, get on the training table, get on the weights. But once again, someone that adds that depth, maybe some special teams presence, things like that, and we'll see how it all unfolds for him in his future as a Sun Devil.
ASU was able to sign 4 guys that project to the defensive line, most likely to the end or edge positions. And we'll start off with 2 of the Arizona guys. Ramar Williams, a 3-star out of Mesa, Arizona, 6'3", 255-pounder, is a guy that you'll find out in a little bit. Hod Rabino is pretty high on. And then James Giggy is coming out from, Bradshaw Mountain up near Prescott. 6'4", 245-pounder, coming from that small school as well. Also earned a 3-star ranking, so some local talent there that perhaps, given ASU's kind of veteran presence along the lines, guys that can probably take a little bit of time to grow into the positions.
Yeah, Williams is one that's very intriguing. I think he had a very good senior year. He was someone that was like that diamond in the rough prospect prior to his commitment to ASU. According to Rivals, his only competing offer was from NAU, so he's someone that could have, a solid upside there. Giggy, even more so. What was said for Williams can be said in triplicate for Giggy. Rivals doesn't have any competing offers listed for him. I don't know. Maybe Chance Cox the last time. I think we were either talking about this or it was on Twitter or message boards trying to think of, guys that ASU signed to a letter of intent from like the 928, because you got guys like Chance Cox, James Brooks from Flagstaff. You don't really get too many from the northern-ish Arizona. Just not a lot that comes out of there as far as high school football is concerned. So Giggy adds to that. Again, between him and Williams, 2 in-state prospects, some solid guys, and we'll see what develops. Those are probably ones, unless they really overachieve, that you probably going to be a couple years before they're really in the mix of things, especially if they're factored in as edge rushers, because you're feeling pretty good with what ASU has with Prince Dorba and Clayton Smith for the next year or more. But these could be depth guys. We've seen how ASU would like to rotate, and if they can be up to the task, they can find a spot.
So the last 2 prospects are Slise Manu out of Reno, Nevada, the highest rated player coming out of Reno this year, 6'2", 230-pounder. Another guy that perhaps might be projected a little bit more, because as of right now he stands at 6'1", 205-pounder, and that's Albert Smith out of Ponchatoula, Louisiana. So obviously a couple, some guys that are perhaps more for the future than kind of the plug and play, because obviously we talked about what ASU was able to do in terms of the returning talent on the line, addressing some of that those issues on the transfer portal, bringing some guys in as well. So I think a pretty solid crop, but obviously right now when you look at this on this side of the ball, you said it a couple of times, Joe, those DBs really kind of stand out.
Yeah, they did. The coaching staff did an incredible job with the defensive backs. You're probably going to see some of those guys into action right away. Maybe not in the starting lineup, maybe, but I would be surprised if all of them are standing on the sidelines for the duration of the 2024 season. Now, as you move, up toward the line of scrimmage, so to speak, they made some progress there on the rush end positions the edges, as we discussed. We'll talk about what you need to do moving forward, but that interior defensive line and linebacker positions are going to be near the top of the list.
All right, so with the secondary additions that are kind of really standing out for the Sun Devils, let's get to know the guy who's wearing that 4-star blue chip badge. So here's a conversation and get to know Tony-Louis Nkuba. All right, Tony, so obviously kind of the end of a long process in the recruitment. How does it feel to kind of finally put a wrap on it all and officially become a Sun Devil?
So it feels good. I feel like I've put in the work to go where I want to go, and I'm ready to go put it on the field. So I'm trying to go be something great.
Obviously, there are a lot of schools that are after you and wanting you to become part of that program. Ultimately, what were the big things that you were looking for in your next college, and why was Arizona State the one place that checked those boxes for you?
So one thing I was really needing, I needed a good relationship with the coach. I had a great relationship with Coach Carrington, and the city matched the vibe, everything. I love the way Coach Kenny Dillingham works. I love all that. It's just they sold everything to me, and I feel like it's a good place to build. And I feel exactly what we're gonna go do.
Now, throughout the process, as you're getting to know, the Sun Devil program, the players, the coaching staff, overall, what was your read on just kind of the collective vibe and culture of Sun Devil football?
I can tell that they're there to build something. Everybody know that they're trying to build something, and that's what I like to see, to be honest.
When you got to know Kenny more, obviously a younger head coach and one of the youngest in the country, what was kind of your view of him as a leader of the program?
I can tell that this is where he wanted to be, and he's at a spot where that's where he's wanted to be his whole life. And he has so much energy, and you can tell that it's not like something he just doesn't want to do. He loves his job, and I like that.
You mentioned Coach Carrington, obviously one of the most accomplished recruiters in the country. I believe he's had a relationship with you since his days back, I believe, going to TCU. What stands out about Coach Carrington, both in terms of his ability as a recruiter, but also, of course, as a position coach?
So I would say he keeps everything real to me. So he's just always been straight up with me. He's never lied to me, and I feel like I value the trust a lot.
When you hit the field, obviously one of the most coveted corners in the DBs in Texas. What are Sun Devil fans going to see from you skill set wise? Give our listeners a self-scouting report on what you bring to the field.
Sure, I feel like I'm a pretty physical corner that's gonna go make a tackle, but when the ball's in the air, I'm gonna go make a play. It's another thing.
And getting to know the Sun Devil defense throughout this process, obviously, Coach Brian Ward is the defensive coordinator, put together a pretty solid first year in Tempe. When you get to kind of look at the schematics and just the scheme as a whole, what really kind of jumps out about what the kind of defense Brian Ward likes to play?
I like the pressure of the D. He likes to bring in pressure, and that means as a DB, you only need to cover for like 3 seconds. So especially it comes with a good D line, and we're gonna come in with a lot of dime packages, put good DBs on the field. So I like to hear. True.
Now, obviously, you're a guy who has a skill set that's pretty versatile. What kind of role are you expecting to play in this defense? Where do you think you fit in best?
Yeah, he told me I can get moved around at corner or safety. So I'm ready to play anything that I need to play. To be honest.
Now, as you're watching the Sun Devil program, obviously this was going to be a kind of a rebuilding 2023 season, some ups and downs, and of course the program was hit by an unusually high number of injuries throughout the season. But when you were watching your future team, from afar, what were some of the things that kind of jumped out to you about this 2023 group of Sun Devils?
I feel like I like the way they're always fighting. No matter what the record were, it was always fighting. Defense was always getting stops, just making plays. That's what I like.
Of course, since Kenny and staff got here, Texas has been one of the major focal points of their efforts. What do you think right now is kind of the view of how Arizona State and the program is viewed in the state of Texas?
I feel like we're trying to get Texas recruits because everybody knows that's where the best football is. So I feel like it's smart and people are just joining the wave because they understand that's the move really.
Was that at all part of the process, knowing that there was already a lot of Texans here in Tempe waiting for you, and obviously some more on the way?
Yes, sir. It sounded good too.
So going back a little bit, I believe you came to the United States in fourth grade from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. How long did it take to kind of get acclimated to life here in America?
Sure, I'm pretty sure it happened pretty fast. I used to play soccer, like that was my favorite sport. And then in middle school, I ended up playing football because my friends were playing football, and I wasn't very good though. I was on a B team, and so I wasn't taking it serious. It was just kind of for fun. And then I just got into it my freshman year, and it became more serious because I could see what I could really do with football, and if I can get a spot, on varsity, and I knew I wasn't going to be on varsity my sophomore year, but I knew I was going to be on varsity my junior year if I worked hard my sophomore year. So it was just all about waiting for me.
Do you ever miss soccer?
I wouldn't say I miss it, but I feel like I'll hop out there and get right.
Obviously, how long did it feel? Once you started playing football, as you mentioned, just kind of because what your friends are doing. How did it take long to kind of fall in love with the game or find a place, or just kind of or did it kind of click pretty quick for you?
I would say I'd always loved football, it didn't take long to fall in love with football. Football was always fun, but it took me longer to progress skill wise. That's what I was saying. It took me longer to progress. It was always fun though.
So, of course, obviously your skills have progressed immensely as you're a 4-star recruit, a blue chip guy, coming in with, one of the highest rated members of this Sun Devil class. Do you feel that adds maybe a little extra pressure on you to maybe kind of contribute right away?
I wouldn't say pressure, but I feel like that's what I want to do anyway. I want to go down there and contribute as soon as possible, as fast as I can. So I don't feel like it adds any pressure because I've already had that plan in there.
And so when you look at this program, obviously coming off a year one and kind of the rebuild, and they're laying a foundation for future success, and a lot of newcomers and new faces here. Does that chance to be something, kind of getting in on the ground level of something that's building towards a big time future? How much appeal does that have for you?
Yes, that's what I was saying. I like somewhere where we can build. I like building off things. I want to end up being the face of the program. In 3 years, we're gonna be great. That's how I feel.
So obviously, you're wrapping up high school. You're going to be heading to Tempe here pretty soon. When you look ahead to this 2024 season, freshman year here as a Sun Devil, what are the goals that you have for yourself? What are the things you want to get accomplished in year one?
I want to be an All-American. I want to get that Jim Thorpe Award, but it's just I feel like I just want to do my best and get everything I get from it. But All-American and Jim Thorpe is going to be one of my goals every year at college.
So about 9 months from right now, when you're running out through Tillman Tunnel, past the Pat Tillman statue, wearing that maroon and gold, what do you think the thoughts and feelings are going to be for you in that moment?
I feel like it's just going to be, I would say it's probably time. That's probably what's going to come in my head. It's time.
So that's a look at what ASU was able to do on this very active Wednesday in terms of their transfer portal and high school signing day additions. So obviously the roster's not done. I mean, the portal window is open through January 3rd. There's another one coming in April. Now that's just, of course, where players can enter. Players once that are already in can commit. So this is something that's still very much in flux. But right now, it's probably a good time to take a current look, stock of what some of the position groups are, and starting off at I think there's 3 position groups that you got to feel pretty good at right now if you're a Sun Devil fan: running back, wide receiver, and safety.
Yeah, if all things remain the same, you're feeling good in those areas. Wide receiver, I think, is one that, again, I'll kind of put a little footnote, like if there's a real good player available, if just the right combination comes across, whether it's a high school player or more likely the transfer portal, if there's just somebody that's maybe too good to turn down. I know you could say that for just about any position, but I think that there is more need for playmaking talent at wide receiver, even though you have a fair amount of it there. If someone stands up, then you'd grab them. I think it's kind of like we're talking about, last year, because we didn't know what was going to be had with Cam Scadaboo, and we're talking about, if another running back, like if a really good running back is available in the transfer portal, then go after him. That was kind of the conversation last year. Didn't really need to happen because Scadaboo gave you as much as you could have ever desired from him, but to that same kind of conversation, if somebody pops up at wide receiver, you take him. If it happens not to be the case, you still feel very good about where you are. Running back, now you're in an intriguing position because you add Brown, who is a top-tier guy. You feel quite good about that. DeCarlos Brooks, I thought, played very, very well in the limited time that he had and was just really looking good, but couldn't keep it all together health-wise, which is the story for a lot of folks on the team. And then safety, you lose a few, but you get a few back, so you're looking good there as well.
Yeah, the running back group especially, because obviously you have your thumpers and Scadaboo and Brooks, but one of the big complaints was there's not a whole lot of explosiveness out of that group. Well, you had Raleek Brown, you had Jason Brown. That problem is immediately rectified right there. And of course, another year of development with Kyson Brown, played a lot of action as a true freshman, started a couple games as well. So you feel really good there. And yeah, I really like the wide receiver group because you have Badger most likely coming back, he's recovering from that back injury, but you get Jake Smith back, him and Alford on defense. Really kind of stand out as terms that you almost have to count them as those 2024 additions. You hope Xavier Guillory is able to kind of stay healthy, find some more consistency. But Omiri came back and really kind of put things in gear the last few games. Melquan Stovall is back. Some of the young guys as well. You feel pretty good overall. And then maybe a step below that, you maybe don't feel great just because you don't know as of yet, but you feel pretty good like they're set at the quarterback spot. Jaden Rashada, blue chip guy. Obviously, we talked about him. You got to know him through this program a little bit ago. Sam Levitt, 4-star guy, same class. Both guys with 4 years left. Trenton Bourget, pretty good safety blanket for you as well. So you feel pretty good overall. And I think at that point, I guess with the caveat, if some huge 5-star talent is wanting to come here, maybe you obviously don't slam the door in their face, but you feel pretty good about where they're at quarterback.
Yeah, you'd think that barring anything chaotic of like somebody transferring out that you didn't expect transferring out or something like that, you feel like they're probably in a good spot as far as just not going to be making any additional moves there, or at least ones that may not be overwhelmingly substantial. We don't know how it's going to shake out depth-wise. Is Rashada going to be the guy? Is Bourget going to be the guy? Is Levitt going to have a chance to really battle for it? So that sort of thing is going to be, more of a springtime conversation. But as far as the personnel is concerned, you don't feel bad because it's a totally different day. I remember, years past, Todd Graham had 2 straight years where he didn't sign a quarterback in his class, and that's like legit freak out time. Even 1 year. Like I remember back in the pre-portal days, if you didn't sign a quarterback every year, I'm like, this is a bad move. This is going to come back and bite you. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So I don't feel bad whatsoever. Could care less that they didn't sign a high school quarterback this year because you got guys from the portal and also kind of a full cupboard, so to speak, with returning players. You even got, I believe Conover is still returning in a relief role there as well. So, for better or for worse, you know that you feel pretty comfortable and confident with the guys that are there, that they can sort it out, that they can be healthy and develop, because these quarterbacks, all of them, certainly most notably Jaden Rashada and Trenton Bourget, had just a lot thrown at them this year, a lot of disadvantageous scenarios. So you want to see that fresh slate for 2024 and have those guys compete for that starting job.
All right, so moving on to a category that's perhaps, a little bit there, like ASU needed to address, and they improved, but perhaps still some work to be done in the weeks and months ahead. Starting off on the offensive side of the ball, you look at tight end, obviously you're losing 3 key guys. Jalen Conyers is now at Texas Tech. Messiah Swinson, his eligibility is over. Ryan Morgan, by all accounts, is going to step away from the game of football following his graduation. And so you have Bryce Pierre, who, of course, has the Sunday upside per his position coach, Jason Mons, and bringing in a couple of transfers in Cameron Harpole and Marcuston Douglas from Florida State. Jaden Fortier, of course, with the injury. But, you saw the depth, the issues that have crept up in a lot of positions, and you just know that this is an offense that sometimes likes to play, 13 personnel. You like to see perhaps some more additions there. And then kicking over to the offensive line, you like what they've done, specifically on the interior, bringing in a lot of guys that kind of project best at guard. So you feel that they've improved there, but you never can have probably enough depth in those trenches.
Yeah, the tight end, starting with that group, that's similar as far as the evaluation to quarterback, to where, the tight end, they've brought in those 3 guys between 2 transfers, 1 high school signee. So anything can happen, but you figure that they're probably that's not going to be the top priority as far as bringing more players. And, you might be set with what you have right now. Again, barring some transfers or other issues that are, out of control or anything that would be unforeseen at this particular point. So again, you might have the guys you're going to roll with at this point right now, for better, for worse, see what they got. Offensive line, as you mentioned, interior, they've gotten guys. They've gotten some, players, whether it's ones that have starting experience or one that have some upside. They've gotten players there, which is just the first step. And I know that sounds like the most basic thing in the world. Like, yeah, okay, they got guys. I'm not saying they're just dudes. These are guys that have, some high accolades or some experience, and that's a valuable thing. So you feel good about that. On the outsides, as far as the offensive tackles, those are areas you still want to address.
Yeah, and so, kind of in the improve, but still could use some help. Linebacker, defensive end, obviously, you feel good with some of the guys they have there, but could probably use another body. But then looking at kind of the top, for me, the top of the to-do list, the shopping list, whatever you want to call it, offensive tackle, defensive tackle. I think those are areas where you have some pieces, especially offensive tackle. Bram Walden and Emmett Boley are coming back, but still, you'd like to see some upgrades, at least if nothing else, to solidify that 2 deep and push those guys for those starting jobs. And then on at the defensive tackle spot, Sean Mallory, it leaves a pretty significant hole. You're asking a lot of CJ Fight and Tristan Monday. Anthony Cooper could be, is coming back, but still, I think you need probably another. For me to feel comfortable, at least 2 quality additions on the defensive tackle.
Yeah, starting at interior defensive line, you hope that you can strike some positive luck for the third straight year with transfers. You don't want to always go the grad transfer route or the 1-year transfer route, rather. But what Deshaun Mallory did, you take that every year. What Nesta Jade Silvera did the year before, you'll take that every year. So if they can find someone in that sort of template, that would be a big get. At offensive tackle, there are, some solid players that are returning, but I don't think that there's anybody that can't be realistically upgraded over, if that makes sense. I mean, I know you can always get better players, but I mean, in a realistic sense. So I would think that it would be wise, for the staff to kick the tires at a minimum as far as offensive tackles are concerned in the transfer portal. I know that offensive linemen and especially tackles are probably like the biggest premium. You're seeing guys in the transfer portal that are going from like FCS schools up to national champion contenders. I use the example, I think that Oregon had a starting offensive lineman, may or may not have been all conference, and Oregon had one of the best lines in America this year, who came from Rhode Island, if I'm not mistaken. And, it's a solid program, but that's like how sought after high quality offensive linemen are in the transfer portal. So, it may be a challenge because there are some names that ASU has been missing out on. There are a couple that have kind of dropped off here and there that ASU was in contention for. So they are, again, kicking the tires. But this is one where you got to get some bodies. And then, again, going back to interior defensive line, I think you really need to strike something rich there, because you need to get a starting caliber player, someone that can be disruptive like those two that I mentioned that have held that spot the last 2 years.
So ASU obviously making some splashes, solidifying some already strong areas, addressing some of the key roster needs. But, as we kind of close down, put a bow on things, Joe, how do you feel like in this first wave of just kind of we have signing day, but also just kind of now the portal being perhaps the tip of the spear? How do you feel that the ASU has done kind of in this first wave of probably 2, 3, 4 waves to come in the next few months?
Starting with the transfer portal, that wave that came about like it was a natural disaster, I guess, in a good way. I don't know if there's a good context for that, but how that occurred again last weekend was something very impressive, and you had a great combination of some players with starting experience, playing experience, some that are high profile recruits that need to change of scenery. So I think they checked a lot of very, very intriguing boxes. So feeling quite good about that transfer portal work. Now, had they not had that home run weekend, then it would have been an area of concern, but hey, guess we'll never know, to quote the great Corey Seager. Now, aside from that, the high school recruiting, you feel good about that, especially in the secondaries we talked about, and those high tier skill players like Fortier and of course like Brown. I'm just really trying to figure out like how I want my brain to view high school recruiting these days, because I did the number. I don't have them in front of me. I'll share them on a future show, but I believe from like the 2021 and 22 classes, there's something like 5 players that are still on the roster that signed with ASU in that time period. Like
wow.
There's mass exodus. You already had 2 guys, 2 of your top 3 signees from last year in Sean Russ and Ashley Williams are gone from the 2023 class. So the high school recruiting and just, college football personnel, again, this could trail off into a whole different subject or a whole different conversation piece, but you don't know what sort of patience they have. So it's almost like I wait and see. Like I look at it right now on signing day, I'm like, hey, this looks good. This looks good. These are the areas where their need for improvement. But the likelihood of a lot of these guys sticking around for an extended period of time, at least statistically right now, just statistically, you don't know what you're getting. So, again, I take a very, very long-winded approach to this response here, but you like what they did in the secondary. You like what they did at those skill positions. I'm intrigued by the offensive lineman. I think Westbrooks is someone that, he might have a high upside. I mean, I think I've thrown this comparison around with a lot of guys, but if he could be like that, Jamil Douglas or Evan Finkenberg or, one of these guys that maybe a Quinn Bailey, somebody that wasn't, a massive recruit as far as 4 or 5 star ranking, but just got better and better, then end up being a multi-year starter, maybe playing in the pros, that sort of thing. I know looking well ahead, but he's someone that I'm real eager to see where he is, where his growth is going to be 3-4 years from now compared to where he is right now. So I think ASU hit quite a few marks, got some big bodies in there, some areas to improve, some things still to be done. But in this day and age where your high school recruiting is not the end all be all, it's typically half or less than half? I mean, I'm curious what it looks like with a lot of, other power conference teams as far as, your player personnel that you acquire year over year. What percent of that comes by way of your traditional high school and junior college recruiting? Because, for ASU, it's going to be well under half, at least in most cases. Last year certainly was with that massive, massive turnover. So, again, some good things, some things to be proud of, some improvement. Really curious to see, because I know this is, a conversation piece of what this looks like a year from now, because the 2025 class for recruiting is really the one where I'm not going to say put up or shut up, but that's the class that a lot of folks have been really looking forward to with Kenny Dillingham and his staff and the connections they have that, you need to get those first two out of the way. 25 is one where a lot of folks tend to believe that they can strike some gold.
It would not be a signing day without having an appearance from Hod Rabino, publisher, DevilsDigest.com, to give the expert insight into all things Sun Devil recruiting, transfer portal, and roster construction, everything these days. Hod, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Brad. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so let's start out by maybe talking about the transfers before we dive into kind of the signing class. Just in a general sense, how effective do you think this group of transfers so far has been in addressing the key team needs?
Yeah, I think it's definitely been effective. We talk about addressing the offensive line and defensive line, which I know we're really screaming as a area of need at the end of the season and really throughout the season for that matter too. There were some linebackers that were added as well. Even adding a capable backup quarterback in Sam Levitt, who transferred from Michigan State, I think was important too. What I do like with the group of high school players is that there's a lot of physical defensive backs that were added to the mix. None of them are shorter than 6 feet. So I think that physical element that the coaches are trying to establish in the defensive backfield is something that they definitely were able to establish. They were able to add 4 offensive linemen. One of them is going to be on a mission only coming on campus in 2026, but I also thought that just really beefing up on the line of scrimmage is something that was accomplished both in the transfer portal group as well as the high school group that signed today.
And of course, with the last few years and the prominence of the transfer portal, really just kind of, especially the last couple of years with the ASU, and just reshaping this roster and really kind of rebuilding it from the ground up. How do you think that's affected the Sun Devil recruiting strategy for the quote-unquote traditional signing periods of high school and junior college athletes?
Well, I just think that when it comes to the ASU coaches, they really toe that line, which I think every program really toes, as addressing the immediate needs with the transfer portal and building for the future with high school players. Now, that does not mean that every high school player that's signed today is absolutely destined to redshirt in 2024. But needless to say that when you talk about players with the physical maturity and the mental maturity, which is very important, obviously, when you talk about both lines of scrimmage, you definitely are going to find more success in players from the portal rather than high school players. But when it comes to defensive backs, not that ASU didn't sign 2 players from the transfer portal defensive back, but maybe that's also a area where ASU felt that they did have pretty good established starters, and really to beef up over there in the high school ranks is something that really was needed. But again, just going back to my earlier point, the plug and play 99% of the time are really going to come from the transfer portal rather than from the high school ranks. But that does not mean that they don't have some really quality talent from that high school ranks, and I think more than a couple of players that I do not expect to redshirt at all in 2024.
So let's dive into that. Obviously, first from that group of transfers, who do you think are going to be those plug and play kind of day one starters, or maybe at worst significant contributors? And then kind of looking at the high school ranks, who do you think has a chance to come in and make a quick impact?
Well, I think when it comes to transfer portal, you really have to look at the defensive line first and foremost. And I think guys like Justin Wootley from Cincinnati, J.P. Dieter from Purdue, those are players that I believe, at least in Wootley's case, did play defensive end, but they're going to ask to be played inside in ASU's front four. And I'm sure that you and I talked about in previous shows throughout the season that Brian Ward, ASU's defensive coordinator's approach is not really to have that massive nose tackle or pretty stout three tech tackle, but really just have very athletic players play the interior and be not just the plug the gap type of player, but also be able to rush the quarterback to really disrupt the backfield. So those are two players that I would see over there. I think that the linebackers that they got Justin Cook from Arkansas and the linebacker from San Diego State, who was the team MVP. Those are two players that I definitely fully expect to be in the rotation. And because ASU only plays two linebackers and the depth is pretty shallow as it is, I think any transfer that you brought in that position in specific are players that you'd expect to contribute right away. When you look at offense, obviously the name that jumps right at you is Raleek Brown, who I know that you interviewed earlier this week. Wide receiver slash running back. I think a player that's going to add a very, very dynamic element to this ASU offense, and really somebody that I think can just give this offense a whole different look when it's all said and done. If I'm looking at the high school players that signed, I'll look at another Brown, this time Jason Brown, the 4-star the running back from Seattle. Just like Raleek Brown, it's a very, very dynamic running back, just adding an element that this ASU ground attack was sorely missing. So that's somebody that can see contribute right away. I talked about all the young defensive backs that were signed, and I think the two that really jump at me is Tony-Louis Nkuba, who was also a 4-star prospect like Jason Brown. Somebody who can play either safety or cornerback. I think ASU would like to play him at safety, at least initially. Somebody who definitely can make an impact early on. And then he got another defensive back. This is more on the cornerback side. Chris Johnson II, a back-to-back Texas high school state champion, another physical player in that defensive backfield for ASU. So those are two players that I feel can really make the presence known early. So again, that goes back to my earlier point, where there definitely are some plug and play players from the transfer portal. Almost all of them are really expected to be that. But I think that a lot of the high school players, especially we talk about Jason Brown, running back, and the two defensive backs that I mentioned as well, those are players that I do not expect to redshirt. I think can really make their presence known and make this ASU roster much deeper and much more talented. So if that crazy injury bug in 2023 is going to rear its ugly head again in 2024, ASU this time around, I think, will be more equipped to handle that adversity.
A couple of the more notable names coming out of the high school ranks, obviously one you touched on already, and Jason Brown, the running back. Also another Pacific Northwest guy in tight end Jaden Fortier, unfortunately coming back from an injury. But those schools up there were kind of hot after him, maybe a little bit later than ASU. But how is ASU able to kind of land those two quality offensive pieces?
Yeah, it's funny because some of the complaints I hear from ASU fans is that the staff is really composed of too many coaches that Arizona, the state of Arizona, that is the bread and butter of the recruiting. They really can't do much outside of the state borders. Well, Jason Mons, Arizona State's tight end coach, one of the most notable coaches in state high school history, won multiple championships with Sora High School, does not only do a good job recruiting ASU's backyard, but he actually went to the Northwest and brought Jaden Fortier, who was not only the best player in Oregon, but also was a unanimous selection both at tight end and linebacker. Just put absolutely crazy numbers in his senior year. Like I said, unfortunately, tearing his ACL in the state championship game is not only going to hold him out of spring practice, but maybe even fall camp. He could be limited. But nonetheless, when we talk about a foundational piece for the future, Jaden Fortier is a great addition there in the tight end group. And Jason Mons also is responsible for Jason Brown from Seattle. Oregon and Washington were schools that were definitely felt to be much more plausible destinations than Arizona State. For some reason, later on in the year, they cooled off on him. Arizona State, again, with Jason Mons leading the charge, was able to swoop in. And I think that, if you're a running back, as talented as Jason Brown, you're really seeing a very depth-friendly running back room in Tempe, because the two top running backs, Cam Scadaboo and DeCarlos Brooks, are both going to be exhausting their eligibility at the end of the 2024 season. So if you're a young, talented running back, I think Arizona State, especially when you have Marcus Arroyo as your offensive coordinator, let alone Kenny Dillingham as your head coach, it becomes a very, very attractive destination. And I think Jason Brown, who really had an incredible offer sheet, did see the opportunity in Tempe. So again, I have to give a lot of credit to Jason Mons, that really went into the Northwest and got, I think, two of the best players from that region to sign their name on the dotted line with the Sun Devils today.
So for decades, California has been really kind of ASU's primary recruiting ground, but with the staff kind of having the ties locally, as you mentioned. Also, of course, Texas having a huge imprint, and maybe even some spots like the Pacific Northwest. But just two high school signees from California in this class, in Champs Westbrooks and Martell Hughes. Do you think that with the recent staff additions of Marcus Arroyo and Dyron Reynolds, defensive line coach, might help strengthen the recruiting efforts in California? Is this something that ASU fans should be worried about, or is it just get good players no matter where they're from?
Well, look, I mean, I always say that you really want to get the best players, no matter where you're from. And if you have two coaches in Brian Carrington and Rashad Samples that obviously do a great job recruiting Texas, I don't think that you're going to put a cap on one of the most talent-rich states when it comes to high school football, and think like, okay, we got our allocation from Texas, now we need to go to California, now we need to go to our backyard here in Arizona and make sure that we balance out the numbers. So I think that there definitely is some element to that. But to your point, yes, I think Deron Reynolds, especially the way he was able to recruit California so well when he coached at Stanford for 8 years, I think that is something that also did guide Kenny Dillingham in making the change over there. Marcus Arroyo, really, when it comes to just developing quarterbacks in general, the fact that he was able to develop Justin Herbert when he was the offensive coordinator there in Oregon is something that can pay dividends not only in the state of California, but really all across the nation. So I think that the overall capabilities of ASU recruiting California did improve with those two staff changes, that you mentioned. But again, I just can't see Kenny Dillingham being a head coach that is going to have a recruiting philosophy that's going to be just extremely rigid one way or another. Folks thought that he was absolutely going to just load up the recruiting class on a lot of marginal players that just happened to live in Maricopa County. That obviously did not happen. And at the same time, I don't think he's going to put a quota of how many players he needs to get from California, or really from any other state. Now, if you start seeing a trend in the 25, 26 classes of maybe not that many players come from California, maybe the question becomes more valid then. But let's not forget, this is only the second recruiting class under Kenny Dillingham. The first recruiting class, we actually had a full recruiting cycle, so to speak. So I think that really making one determination over another as far as what state Dillingham and his staff may favor or may not be too crazy about, I think maybe just a little too early in the game to really make that assertion.
You mentioned some of the high school signees that have a chance to kind of be day one or early contributors. Kind of maybe on the flip side, who's a guy that might be a little diamond in the rough that you think that might be getting a little overlooked right now, but maybe a couple years down the road could be an important cog for the Sun Devil team?
Yeah, I think the player that I would point to is Ramar Williams, who prepped locally over here in Mesa. I feel that he's, even though he's coming in as a defensive lineman, he's somebody that I believe scored 9 total touchdowns playing tight end. Now, I'm not saying he's going to line up at tight end anytime in the future in Tempe, but just the fact that he does have that athleticism, I think makes him like a very, very intriguing player because really when you look at the in-state prospects in the 24 class, I don't think Ramar Williams was anywhere close to the top 10 or top 15. But he's somebody that I think ASU did a great job jumping on early because he definitely opened a lot of eyes with the way he played his senior year. So that's one player that to me is very, very, very intriguing. Another player I will mention also on offense is Zachariah Sample. I know that the wide receiver group at Arizona State is absolutely stacked. I fully expect Elijah Badger to come back. You have Jake Smith that's not now is now going to be eligible, and so even with all that talent, I think Zachariah Sample is somebody that really put up a great highlight reel, if you will, of his senior year. So maybe not really being able to figure that much in the rotation in 24, just because I feel like the depth at this wide receiver room is absolutely hard to penetrate for any newcomer. But I think in 25, 26, I wouldn't be surprised if Zachariah Sample is going to be one of the best wide receivers that the Sun Devils are going to have in those given years.
So the staff has said that relationship building is the key to recruiting, and that takes time, and that the 2025 class might be the first time where you see those relationships kind of fully blossom. But as you mentioned, this has just been the first cycle where this staff has had a full go at it. Now, given everything that we've seen so far, how would you kind of just rate the overall haul of this 2024 class in terms of the timing and what they've been able to accomplish?
Well, I think that the fact that it's ranked somewhere in the low 40s, is not really any ranking that really should excite or move the needle for Arizona State fans. Although it is, as we talk right now, number 3 in the Big 12. So among the new conference foes that ASU is about to embark on in the fall of 24, I think they've done actually very, very well. But ASU, and this is not really much different than a lot of other programs out there in the country, is still needing to bring a lot of transfer portal additions. And ultimately, when you are relying heavily on that recruiting avenue, that is going to take a toll, for lack of a better term, on your recruiting class, on the high school players that you're signing, and even junior college ones, which Arizona State did not sign today, but might sign in future classes. So that's something that definitely does have an effect. I don't know so much of an adverse effect on your recruiting, but if you're really just fixed on the rankings, it's really hard if you're a team like Arizona State to bring in more than a dozen additions from the transfer portal and still have a top 25 class. So the blue bloods out there are not relying that heavily on the transfer portal, by at least generally speaking, compared to a team like Arizona State. So that's why they're able to have the big and shiny recruiting rankings with a bunch of 4 stars and 5 stars. And obviously, and NIL. I mean, I'll be remiss if I really don't mention that. It's been well documented how hard ASU is really trying to make their NIL coffer at a level that they can really attract not only the best transfer portal players, but also the best players, players out of high school. Even retaining guys from leaving. So that's something that ASU is also contending with. And maybe in the 25, 26 classes, their NIL purse is going to be bigger. Maybe they don't need to go that much into the portal just from a pure talent perspective, and able to really focus more on the high school additions and really just improve their ranking compared to a class like 2024. But again, I mean, I don't think it's something that ASU fans really need to worry about, because I felt that when it came to transfer portal and even some of the freshmen that came in the 23 class, I felt that a lot of them did contribute well. So I feel that this coaching staff definitely has a very, very good eye for talent, whether they're adding somebody from the portal or from the high school ranks. So I think ASU, even though the high school rankings may not be all that pleasing, they're still doing very, very well in the portal. They're ranked number 4 right now nationally, and they were actually finished the last recruiting cycle being the top transfer portal ranking in the entire country. So I do have faith in this staff that they're going to make the right additions and really take the appropriate avenue when it comes to shoring up the overall talent level of the Sun Devils.
Last one for you. Obviously this early signing period runs for a couple more days. The transfer portal window runs until January 3rd. Although they can jump in and they can then sign in, and another one, of course, in April. Right now, where do you think ASU stands in terms of just kind of the available numbers on the roster, and what's left on the shopping list? What do they need to do? Perhaps in terms of just still adding some pieces to this roster.
Yeah, if you're looking at available numbers, they really don't have more than a handful of open positions. But there are a couple things to keep in mind over here, maybe more than a couple. First of all, even though ASU, and this is no different than any other school around the country, did announce the additions of out of the transfer portal, those will not become official until any of those players attend the first day of class. So whether they're going to go to the modern language and lit building on campus, and yes, I'm being sarcastic if you know what I'm talking about, or just logging online for your first online class, only then to become official. So really, I think January 8th, if I'm not mistaken, is the first day of the spring semester. So only then all those transfers, do become official. I mean, I'm not going to say it's going to be like some white knuckle moments for the coaching staff until those folks actually get on campus and attend class, whether it's virtually or in person, but that still has to happen. I think post spring practice, we're going to see more attrition, maybe 5-7 guys that just are not being part of the rotation at all when those 15 sessions take place, really don't have a whole lot of future playing time in Tempe and are going to decide to leave. And that obviously is going to open up more spots for Arizona State to fill. Now, I think the one cloud that still hangs over this program are the NCAA sanctions, and how much is that going to reduce the scholarship number that ASU can carry? Because right now, the max, as we know, is 85 scholarships. But now if ASU, as a result of those sanctions by the NCAA, sanctions, by the way, that are going to be negotiated between the school and the NCAA, is going to say that ASU can carry 83 or 82 scholarship players when the 2024 season does kick off, then obviously that can also hamper how many players you can add and which positions you can add. But generally speaking, you're looking at positions of need that will need to be addressed, as you mentioned, in the April transfer portal window that does run between April 16th through the 30th. I would say that offensive line, it seems like ASU is just going to take just as many players as possible in that position. Another interior player on the defensive line. I think they would want one more linebacker too, just to really make sure that you have the adequate depth over there. Any other position is really going to be a luxury, and I think that low key, as the kids say, the two biggest additions in the 2024 class are players that were not eligible to play in 2023 and have been on campus here for quite a while. Jake Smith, a wide receiver I mentioned earlier, and I know another guy you interviewed earlier this week, Xavier Alford. I call him Chamber of Commerce because that guy promotes ASU in the city of Tempe like much better than a lot of our elected officials out there. But to have him starting at safety, again, a guy that did not play one down of football in 2023, by default becomes a huge addition for the Arizona State Sun Devils.
Well, Hod, as always, great to talk ball with you and get that expertise and insight. And any folks that are, by this point, still not in the huddle on DevilsDigest.com, what are you doing? Get in. Join Hod, his staff, Joe, and myself in the huddle. Get all this great information before and a lot of insider stuff. Hod, as always, appearance number 96 in the book, so we're making the march to 100. We'll get there soon.
Sounds good to me. Thanks for having me, Brad.
And that's going to do it for this episode of Speak of the Devils. I'd like to thank our lengthy guest list, starting with Hod Rabino, publisher of DevilsDigest.com, new high school signees Champs Westbrooks and Tony-Louis Nkuba, and transfer portal additions Raleek Brown and Kamari Wilson. Make sure you stay with us on the social media side of things. So we talked about it. We hammered this point home. This roster makeover is not done. A lot of stuff that's going to be coming down the pike. So you want to stay with us for all the breaking news. You can follow the show on Twitter at SOTD Podcast, on Instagram at Speak of the Devils. You can subscribe on YouTube, follow on Facebook, and give me a follow on all the things social at BDenny29.
And you can follow me at Joe Healy 42. And a huge shout out and thank you, as always, to our wonderful sponsors, starting with our good buddy Parker Jones Auto Group. If you want to be like you see on these commercials where someone like buys a vehicle for their significant other for Christmas without like telling them about it, and it's really questionable tactics and things
Where
like
do they
that.
get those huge bows?
Like these, 8 foot by 8 foot bows. That's what I want to. Yeah, this things larger than me. We'll see. Maybe Park would have one of those for you. So if you want to make that decision, or if you just want to buy a vehicle in the normal way, don't go anywhere else on planet Earth than Jones Auto Group. I'm going to give you Parker's number. If you haven't taken it down by now, he wants you to have it. It's his cell phone number, 602-881-8998. Again, 602-881-8998. Skip that usual lot experience that you have at other dealerships and get with a true Sun Devil at Jones Auto Group there. Of course, huge shout out to devilsdigest.com. You heard from Hod Rabino the last couple weeks. He's basically got a standing gig here, residency here on Speak of the Devils. A lot that you need to catch up on and be aware of. Even though signing day has come and gone, it's not like this is the peak of things and there's going to be no news. We know how this is by now. There's news virtually every day, every week. As we talked about, ASU is going to be adding more transfers, potentially more recruits to this signing class. Spring ball is going to be here before you know it. So get dialed in, get locked in, devilsdigest.com. If you're looking for like a last-minute gift for the loved ones in your life, maybe they're not a Sun Devil fan, or maybe they're not like the true diehard Sun Devil, get them a subscription to The Huddle, devilsdigest.com. And when we're talking about gifts, if you're scrounging around trying to figure out what to do for those Sun Devils in your life who might need some maroon and gold merchandise, get on down to Cactus Sports, 514 South Mill Avenue in Tempe. You can load up, put together the perfect Sun Devil fit from head to toe, whether it's for you or someone in your life that would look real good wearing maroon and gold. Obviously, you can get to that Mill Avenue location or shop online at cactussports.com. A huge thank you to our food partners. First, Burrito Express. There's no better time than right now to get down to Burrito Express. They're open from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. Some locations open as early as 6 a.m. during the week, 8 to 3 on Saturdays and Sundays. They are a family-owned business that's been around since 1995. Huge supporters of ASU and Sun Devil Athletics. You know how real they are about it, so they're well worth your support. They've got 6 locations, 2 in Gilbert, 1 in Mesa, 1 in Chandler, 1 in Scottsdale, and that Tempe location near Rural and University, just about a half mile from Mountain America Stadium. So check them out and support our good friends at Burrito Express, and also do the same at Spaghetti Shack. We need to get like some fusion. Like I know they got the spaghetti tacos. We might need to get like spaghetti burritos or something like that. We need to get our good folks Angel and Joey together to put the brain trust together, get that going. But support the good friends of ours at Spaghetti Shack, which, of course, is not just Sun Devil owned, but owned and operated by a former Sparky, the Sun Devil. They have updated and upgraded their menu. A lot of new options that you weren't seeing before. So there's something there for everybody. And you can check out their new Tempe location at 922 East Apache Boulevard in Tempe. You can find them on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at The Spaghetti Shack. Check them out online at thespaghettishack.com. And last but not least, we certainly encourage you to support our very good friends at Sun Devil Family Charities, and you can find what they're all about online at sundevilfamily.org.
Yeah, I just cannot stop thinking about spaghetti burritos now. That's revolutionized the business.
Like a garlic bread, like tortilla or something like that.
Oh God, see, this is
right there you go.
Okay. We'll workshop this. Also, be sure to support the good brand at homefieldapparel.com for the most comfortable, best looking collegiate designs out there. Might be, by the time you're listening to this, might be a little late for Christmas, but anytime you get a package from Home Field Apparel, it is a holiday. And you can get 15% off with our custom offer code SOTD23, 15% off your first purchase at homefieldapparel.com. So support the good brand. And also, when you're done supporting all our amazing sponsors, drop us a 5-star review on the podcast platform of your choice. Joe and I will be back next week as we take an all-encompassing look back at 2023, the year in Sun Devil sports.